And let's start the, roundtable. The format is as follows. You have here everyone who you have seen during the day today. And you can ask them any questions, ideally, at least for starters, related to the topics we covered here. But we can digress, and when we digress too much, we will go to the after party. Okay, Anton, you're the first. Okay, I need someone with a mic. Yeah, so only one mic though.
Yeah, I think I can moderate and then pass the mic to the
please
audience.
do.
Yeah, sure. So I have several questions that I missed a chance to ask during the talks.
One question at a time,
sure,
please, and then the next.
Sure, okay. And my first question is for Roberto. In your first talk, you had really nice slides with the priorities you followed when developing Lua, but I did not see such. You did not mention compatibility between language versions as your priority. So could you please comment on that? Is it not a priority, or what do you think about it?
Well, I think you already noticed it's not a priority, but we are changing that. I think you can see in 5.3, Unbelievable was quite compatible, even with a big change of integers, etc. was quite compatible with 5.2, and 5.4 will be almost fully compatible with 5.3. Unless you use like the C calls related to coroutines. There is one parameter changed in one strange C call, so we are getting more. This is becoming a priority, but it was not a priority. Even it's related to the way Lua was used, even today, that most people embedded Lua in. For instance, we have games running Lua 3.2. without problems today, and so they just got Lua 3.2 embedded. But of course there are other problems. There are mainly documentation and programmers, etc. that becomes a bigger problem. Oh, I know Lua. Oh no, the Lua, it's not like you think it was. Or so we had. I found this piece of code in the net. It doesn't work anymore, and so we are becoming more conscious about that.
Yeah, thank you.
Можно там водичка есть, ее сюда передать для спикеров. Okay, the next question, please. Anton, next to you.
This one goes to Roberto too, but I think that other people can answer it then. Are you happy with the way the Lua community is now, or do you think that something can be improved? For example, we can we can popularize Lua more, or invite newcomers and show them how awesome Lua is, and what can we do about it?
I'm sorry, I distracted everyone with the water. My bad. Can you please repeat the question?
Roberto, I can answer that.
Yeah.
Pass the water.
Sorry, guys, it's been a long day.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Sorry.
Please repeat.
Well, the Lua has in part, I think, because of the language itself, Lua has a very fragmented community. I mean, this is related first of this stuff of being a scripting language. So it depends a lot of the host, and so it's difficult to share code because you don't use the same host, so each host creates a kind of different community. Second, because it's used in games, I think it's a very secretive community. And third, it's very used in embedded language that, again, it's the same problem as hosts. Again, it's very fragmented because each embedded system is completely different from others. So I think Lua has this it's not a web language. I mean, web language is what everyone wants to talk about, and this creates huge communities. And so this is a problem, but I don't know exactly how to solve that, because as I just said, that the problem is not how the community was created, but because really you have, for instance, people from World of Warcraft do a lot of this. They assume World of Warcraft. I heard there is a huge community of users, as I said, the huge libraries and the repositories, but they cannot share most of their code with other people. So I think this is I really don't know how to increase this sharing between the communities.
I
And
see.
I'm not very good at that too, but
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
If I may add a little bit, I'm sorry.
But Ilya's question was just to anyone can add, I think. So just
I have a mic, thank you. Well, the Lua communities or ecosystems are sure very diverse, and they have different and sometimes opposing goals, especially if you count Lua-JIT community as Lua community, and as it is now. And I would say that how to fix this, at least in my opinion, is that, well, you embrace it. The things that the community misses is probably the strong drive to, well, if not unify, but to be a community. And well, I'm personally trying to fix that as far as I can do, one man or one team now, as with our organizers. But this is something that, for example, Ruby had, I believe. When before Ruby on Rails, they were unknown, much more unknown than Lua, a small fragmented language. And then someone came with a huge project. Well, we all know who was that. It's 37 Signals, the guys who were good at convincing other peoples to do it their way. This is one of the ways, I think, to convert Lua to something unified. But should we do it? I don't know, because it's a strength of the Lua as much as it is a weakness. So, yeah.
For sure, I not evangelizer. I mean, I am almost the opposite of evangelizer. I'm very afraid of convincing people of things, and then they blaming me afterwards. I just tell, for instance, as I said, I am the first one to say, "Oh, maybe Lua is not the best solution for your problem." I mean, and so I sometimes I really impressed at how other people are really convinced of. I keep seeing them say, "Well, how he really believes he created the perfect language," but then he speaks and other people believes him too. And so for me, this is a big surprise. But I cannot do that.
This is not engineering. Not
yes,
the software engineering.
Yes,
this is human engineering.
Yeah, exactly. It's evangelizing. It's really evangelizing in the original sense of the term. Is you have to spread the faith in something, and I don't have faith. I have kind of
Headlines
beliefs based
on faith in Lua.
Yes, exactly. Faith in the original sense of something irrational that you believe because you believe. I believe in what I see in evidence, and sometimes I can change opinion because I see new evidence, and this is completely contrary to faith. And so I'm not at all a good evangelizer. So
Roberto is not a believer. He's a scientist. He knows.
I'll try to. Yes, we
Everyone
try
does.
to.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry.
What are some good ways to embrace Lua? What do you think?
To embrace Lua, I would say don't be toxic. Not to use in particular, but what means embracing this difference? Don't be toxic. Be I'm not sure of the proper English word, fertilize in a good sense. In create environment, good things grow and bad things die with prejudice. Sorry, but just kidding. So create positive environment. I would say.
And it's not only me. I mean, the two other guys in the Lua team also are not very. I think it's strange because Valdemar, I think he's the most reclusive, but he's the most enthusiastic. I mean, when he talks to someone, he is really convinced. I mean, again, based on facts, but because he is the most heavy user of Lua of the three of us. So, for instance, his whole team uses Lua, but he's at the same time he's shy and he's not even in the Lua list. So it's difficult to have a wider audience for him. And Luis is completely also as bad as me. I think it's
as good as you.
As with social engineering.
Yeah. So. Just create positive environment. Sorry for this soft skills speak. Help people grow. Something good will grow out of it.
Okay, question to Roberto. So during your first talk today, you said that lack of Lua models should not be a reason to avoid the use of Lua. Because you can always create a binding to existing library written in C or something. At your second talk, you said that you don't want to install all of these C libraries that people are sending you, and so on.
I was very clear about large projects. I don't intend to do a large project of measuring performance. Okay. If I was going to invest really, for instance, I was doing a master thesis in the performance of a garbage collector, that wouldn't be a big problem. But the problem is that I have to install those libraries, etc., to see whether this is a good example for me or not, and to use in some measures. This is kind of, would be much more in the category of quick and dirty programs. I just want some programs to run some tests and throw them away.
Okay, so. But I think that people who decide whether to use Lua or not, who need to decide, they might have reasons to not install C bindings either, or C libraries. So, I actually think that lack of Lua models, of pure Lua models, can be a problem when you decide to use Lua. And actually, I think that Hisham Muhammad actually had the same opinion during his talk called Lua Application Development, I think. And do you think there is a way to work around the problem of...
I hope Hisham is working around the problem.
But
I mean, my dream is something like what he's doing. I mean, he's doing a rich ecosystem of Lua modules, but it doesn't need to be standard to come with Lua to be embedded in Lua. I think his solution is what I think would be the best solution.
I mean that we have Lua Rocks and many, well, possibly several other repositories for Lua modules, but they are all unofficial, I think. So.
Rocks is official, as official as it can
Is it
get.
official already?
Yes,
because I thought it was unofficial just recently.
What's the difference?
Come on.
Well, I think that having an official repository would be is a good way to promote its use for the community.
Are you confusing official with curated?
Not sure, maybe.
Because Lua Rocks is official, it's blessed by Roberto. And but it is open and not curated. No, in a sense, there's no moderator there.
As official as CPAN for Perl. So
yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely as official.
Why nobody publishes their models there?
I publish modules there. Okay. I think the Tarantul team publishes. You don't, but please do.
I do. But
also, as, I often come and hit people, and you have to publish.
I mean that when you search for Lua model, you normally, well, you very seldom can just come to Lua Rocks. find the model you need and install it. Most often you need to go to GitHub, to Google, and find to other big projects like Tarantul or game engines or anything, or big collections of libraries, and you need to install them from other sources, not from LuaRocks itself.
I would say that that's the same problem as with the community, because the ecosystems are so different. And maybe the people from gaming agent not even know that there's LuaRocks, because all they do is live within their own ecosystem, which is quite isolated of all the other Lua. And all that they can do is not, I would not say evangelize, but inform them and motivate
Yes,
them.
I think exactly. The problem is that the community is fragmented, and LuaRocks is one piece of that community. And for a lot of people, it's not very useful because they have their own communities and their own specific needs. So,
Okay. Yeah.
but I bless LuaRocks as much as I can, and
Okay.
if that is the problem, that's not a problem at all.
Well, I think that something needs to be
I'm
done
sure the Lua
so
team,
to,
the whole Lua
to,
team
to
does.
promote the use of LuaRocks, to promote publishing of models on LuaRocks itself.
Well, come to people and contribute rock specs. That's the best way.
Well, I think that it's not the only way, that some like PR is needed.
PR is needed, maybe, but how do you look? Well, come to people and knock
Some advertisement.
to their doors. And what's the best way to knock at the engineer's door than to contribute a pull request? Come on.
Okay. Thank you.
The links to LuaRocks on lua.org.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
I think that will be very good. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Maybe
That's a good idea.
Maybe provide some way to export or build some packages for popular packages like Debian, RPM.
There
or
are
some-
ways. They
But,
are good
it's-
enough ways.
Yeah, but it's not there.
Yeah, but
Right now.
do you want this to be official? Do you want Roberto to support this?
No.
No, so grab Hisham and tell him, come on, guy, I have this module. It's a cool way to export to Debian. Please make it official.
I think Tarantul had some tools to do this. Yeah.
Do you have a
If
script
you-
to create
there-
Debian? I think yes. Debian
No,
packages.
there-
Is it in open source?
Uh,
What's the problem?
I could not find it.
The other guys, yeah.
You can take a look at repository PackPack.
PackPack.
It's our tool, yeah, PackPack, for for packaging, Deb and RPM, yeah, both
Yeah.
both kinds of packages. So you can take it and try it.
So again, that's a PR question, I would say.
No, I talk about tools that convert rock specs to Deb and RPM.
Yeah.
Converts Deb to RPM.
No, RockSpec to Deb and
RockSpec
RockSpec to
to Deb.
RPM.
Uh,
I think it exists. I think it works. If it doesn't, contribute a pull request.
I personally don't remember the command line options, how to do that, and what tools should be used. But it sounds that there is nothing impossible to just unpack, repack, do what you want,
Yeah.
and it all depends on your applications.
Yeah, we did
So
it in
are we talking about the main repository of LuaRocks, or LuaRocks is a software that package manager that just installs whatever you tell him to install?
I don't think there's a difference in that sense. And
I
we used
think there
similar
is.
toolings back in, I don't know, 5 years ago. So it's there, definitely. Julian, did you want to add something?
So yeah, I want to add that most of a fair chunk of the Lua community is either games or embedded, and in both of these environments, something like LuaRocks is impractical to use or not useful. So yeah, I guess that a lot of people don't bother. I worked a bit in embeddeds at some point, and Lua Rocks was simply too heavy to run on the microcontroller, and if it has internet access at all. So yeah, that's the kind of thing I think that some people just don't bother.
Yeah, I have actually a related question, Roberto. We a few years ago, again, we discussed with you what's ideal ecosystem for Lua framework to grow in, to become popular. And I believe you have said that it is something that Lua excels, where it is important to learn to code quickly and to be really fast. Is it true?
And to do what? Sorry.
To be fast, to learn to write code quickly, and for this code to be fast. Is it correct?
I don't think so.
Okay, please correct me.
I don't remember what I said, but
Yeah.
that's a long time ago.
Then I will repeat the
First,
question.
I think strange that I said that you should code fast.
Not code fast, but fast code.
Or write fast code.
Yes.
That's not standard. I mean,
So the Lua is a fast interpreter, is it not? The performance is good of the Lua.
depends what you do.
Depends.
Depends
But in general,
against
no,
what.
no?
I mean,
Is Lua slow?
no, but fast. I mean,
Is it fast? Is it when I started with Lua in 2005, it was.
It should be fast and not enough for your needs.
Yes.
But it is not as fast as a C, for instance.
Okay, but there's a second criteria, which is it's much harder to learn C than to learn Lua.
Oh yes, that's true.
Yeah, so both of those criteria has to be true for a Lua project, for Lua to excel in a project. I think that was your point, but maybe I
No, maybe my point is that this is a point that I make frequently, so maybe that was my point, that often it's easier to write code in Lua that it's faster than in C. I mean, if you write just any code in Lua and in C, then you may get Lua code faster than C. I mean, C code is fast if you know a lot. If you don't know, you can do horrible things. And in Lua, it's more kind of like most scripting languages, more kind of a medium. So it's if you're really good programmer, you cannot excel. You will not build the brightest data structures in Lua or in Perl or in Python. But if you're just not that good or don't care, I just want to write something, you have a reasonable performance with very little effort. And in C, you can do some really bad stuff.
Okay.
If you don't think a little about what you're doing.
Yeah. Okay. Anton, did you have a question? There's
Yes,
a
I do.
question. Yeah, on your left.
There are several projects, as I know, that allows to interpret Lua or run Lua in JavaScript.
Yeah.
So you can use Lua code in browser. But there are no browser that can use Lua directly.
Actually, there is one. There's a one security-related browser that can do this. I don't remember the name.
Is there a chance, is a way that Lua will become another web standard like JavaScript right now?
Or do you even want that?
Or it's a bad idea, and why?
I think it's completely out of scope to think anything but Java. I mean, JavaScript became people are running C on top of JavaScript. I mean, JavaScript is the language of the browsers, and I don't think people tried the what's the name, the WebAssembler to put as a standard, and it's a nightmare. I mean, no, it doesn't advance, and it has a lot of incompatibilities with JavaScript, and it's better to keep with JavaScript. I mean, if we can convince Microsoft and Google and what else, Facebook, and give me more of 3 or 4 names,
Mozilla,
that they should support Lua, maybe we, but
but do you want
but
that?
before,
Do you actually want that?
no, I don't think. Well, it would be great to be much more famous.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't be allowed to touch the language anymore. I mean, if I want to do anything related to programming languages, I have to create another language because I would be expelled from the committee for sure.
I actually remember the reason I asked this question. I remember our talk back in IPO and Web office. Then the question was, do you wish that initially Lua would be adopted instead of JavaScript because the age of the languages are more or less the same? And did you ever wish for that? So from the very start, there would be Lua in browsers and not JavaScript. And I remember that your answer was something along the lines that no, because then you would require all that backwards compatibility that exists, that kills JavaScript nowadays language.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. I would say something that it's not very polite, but it's true. I mean, I would be much more famous, but I would be famous for creating a horrible language. So it's a kind of, it's hard to decide what your ego wants.
Not mine ego, for sure. Okay, more questions, guys. There's one in the back.
You mentioned that Lua 5.4 is as stable as you want it to be. Lua 5.4. You said that it's as stable as you want it to be. Do you plan to tag a release?
No, sorry. I said that garbage collection in Lua.4 was as stable as I wanted to be.
So there is Lua 5.4 release isn't going to happen anytime soon, right?
Define anytime soon.
I just checked the version history, and it's been like 4 years since the last major release. And it's more than the previous one, so maybe we could hope for in a year.
They didn't see the interview yet because I
not
answered
yet.
that. Yes, I answered that in an interview. Probably almost for sure this year, maybe in a few months, if there is no big surprises in the way. We are planning to close the version soon, and then always take some time but hopefully in a few months.
And can I ask the question back? Why do you want Lua 5.4 so much?
Because of the new generation of collector, of course.
Oh, of course.
It's
I
crazy
forgot.
to
Because the current is not good enough.
Okay. But why?
The most recent example that we had, and we, as far as you know, we are using LuaJIT, and it means the plain garbage collector from 5.1. And the most recent example that it swept through 70 megabytes of application configuration and just Lua state, and it took like 100 milliseconds, and it didn't erase anything. So
I'm sorry you don't have the page on, so...
But sorry.
It's Tarantul. It's
The,
Tarantul.
But that's logic.
the version in the Git repository should be stable enough for you to use, for at least for tests, to check whether it
Yeah,
behaves,
we're considering
etc.
that.
Yes.
Yeah, so am I getting this right, that Tarantul is considering to migrate from LuaJIT to plain Lua?
No, but there is a LuaJIT branch embracing the new changes regarding garbage collection from 5.4.
Okay,
So we're looking at it.
Okay, Anton,
Yes, my question is just, do I understand right? You have estimated the effort that will require to, say, backport the generational garbage collector back to LuaJIT?
No. But the LuaJIT itself is not evolving, and there are some movements around it, branch here, branch there, so on.
Anton, can I ask you a question?
Me? So
Yeah, sure.
Should I go there?
No, that's perfectly okay. You're on that camera.
Okay.
The question is, UJIT, what kind of garbage collector does it have?
Well, basically it has our implementation of Lua. It has the same garbage collector as Lua 5.1 and LuaJIT, well, 2.0. So it's incremental mark and sweep with just few tweaks. We have an extension that introduces kinder generational idea, because we have, well, the real case for that was that we had to deal with a lot of really immutable data. So we have an extended API to separate this data from the main object chain, and thus we leave the most objects that leave quick, they're traditionally collected with incremental mark and sweep collector, while another bulk of data lives permanently while the instance of the VM lives. Yeah.
So
That's it.
are you happy with the current garbage collector that you have?
Well, I think we're almost happy.
Okay.
What I have encountered and what I can see the trouble, sometimes we spend lots of time on deallocating strings, I think. And I think it's just some legacy that comes from LuaJIT's internal allocator, because of course LuaJIT has its own custom allocator. So yeah, it's not, I think it's not even problem of garbage collector per se, but the main problem here, and I think it's the only problem that remains for us, is that when garbage collector frees strings, they are deallocated a bit slower than I'd expect. I think this is.
Okay. And another, come on. Guys, if someone else wants to ask a question, you will have a priority, don't hesitate. Also questions not to Roberto are welcome, sorry Roberto, but those guys are getting bored here.
Sorry, but my question is for Roberto again.
Okay.
So, from a language design perspective, can you share us some interesting stories or maybe tips to future language designers?
Oh, that's an open question for in the topic for another talk, actually.
Yeah, maybe,
But just one, Roberto.
Yeah.
What's your favorite?
I don't know. There is one thing that it's really interesting is that I like to talk is about future incompatibilities. This is something that it's very peculiar. That is sometimes you do some decisions that doesn't seem anything important at all, and then some years later it bites you, and you see that, oh, that was a very stupid decision because now I want to do that and I cannot do that because of that decision, but at that time you didn't know that, and really at that time you didn't see, and you couldn't see anything wrong at all, and then suddenly you see, oh, why did I do that decision? Because now I have something much more important that I cannot do because of that decision that was almost, oh, it doesn't matter, to do whatever you
Do you
want.
have a specific example?
I
Neil
have
is false?
No, no, not at all. So for instance, it's a silly case, but it's, for instance, this idea of a variable in a repeat until.
Oh,
You declare the variable inside the repeat until, and it is visible in the condition. It is, it's smart. It solves a lot of problems. It creates a lot of different. For instance, if you want to do a continue,
oh.
you cannot do a continue with that kind of structure because you may jump to the condition without creating the variable, for instance. So
So
it
this
has
is
a
the great
l-
secret behind the lack of continuing.
No, actually, someone pointed it to me recently.
Ah.
I never thought about it. Someone asked us that, oh, you don't have continue because of this. But what's the problem if you continue and repeat until? And because then I said, oh, yes. And I never thought of exactly. I never thought about that. Or a much smaller. This I don't regret at all, but I could regret the use of minus for comments, and then you cannot have decrement in your language, for instance. But that I don't regret because I don't want to have decrements, but it's another example. But this one of continue is a very really real one. So.
Okay, thank you. To Roberto.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
What was the most language inspired you before development Lua? Before. Which language inspires you?
Before Lua, actually one of the things that mostly inspired me was VDM. That is a definition language. It's a formal language for formal definition of stuff. Also, was driven the creation of tables. So VDM was a main driver for the language. But then there was no big language at the time. Later, I became a big fan of Scheme and a lot of stuff in Lua. For instance, this idea of closures as real closures was heavily inspired in Scheme and things like that. I think exactly following this idea of whether you create a very famous and bad language or a not so famous but really good language, I would dream of creating Scheme. Be very proud of. It's really well-designed language.
Okay.
Do you follow any modern languages designs like Go, Rust, or Dart? Do you steal something from them, like ideas?
Can you even steal something from them for Lua nowadays? Beyond garbage collection?
I follow these languages. Well, I don't remember anything on them very particularly inspiring. I mean, but they're mostly related now to types and things like that we don't have in Lua, don't intend to have. But I try to follow these languages. Yes, I have some basic knowledge of Go and Swift and Rust. Not much. People say I should study Rust, but I still don't find.
Okay, maybe not for Lua, but for Pauline.
For Pauline, and as I said, we want Pauline to be simple. We don't want challenges.
Nothing to steal then.
Not yet.
Oh, okay. Okay, so please, I want to have a question not for Roberto, from Anton, for example. You have a question not for Roberto? Oh, okay, bravo.
So in general, it's question a bit more related to Yaroslav's talk, but actually it's not directly for him. So my question is probably some kind of open question. The current state of tooling in Lua community, especially probably for LuaJIT or for not LuaJIT and so on. And the question is, so there are many tools for like profiling, for other scenes, but what about the code quality, and what about scenes that can improve our code quality, something like static analyzer. I know that static analyzer is a hard thing to do for dynamic typed language, but probably some kind of improvement of Lua check, like things inspired by data flow analysis or control flow analysis, and probably it can improve the code quality and satisfaction of Lua users and general Lua experience when you're writing code, and not experience while various things like nil tables, attempt to index nil value, or catching various unexpected errors and so on. So any ideas, any proposals maybe?
Sadly, the author of LuaCheck died, as I know. So, no?
What?
I think yes. I think yes. So.
Let me tell you what I think about the tooling. So, first thought is that we can change what exists currently, and let's start from the current situation. Well, I have given a brief overview of tooling in my presentation, and I guess you know what happens in your domain right now. So the question I am interested in is what can we do right now, and what strategies should we select to make the community better, to make better tools, and to make Lua more popular, maybe, if we make that kind of goals. So let me try to answer that question. For several destinations, for several ways, I don't see a straightforward way to implement it. You said a lot about static analyzing and different kinds of analysis. And as for me, I can't imagine a situation when I sit down and implement it in a week or two, and I don't know if it's ever possible or what obstacles are there. From the other hand, I know I can see some ways to implement in other things. I have asked an open question today about collecting both C and Lua stacks at the same moment, and I think there is a chance that it can be implemented, and everything depends on the resources needed for it and actually motivation of developers. So can we affect it?
Okay.
No, the open question, can we affect the way the ecosystem develops?
I think the question was a little bit more narrow, especially, did I get you right that you want basically better LuaCheck?
Yes, probably something that if we can use the LuaCheck at the base or improve it, or probably...
I'm sorry, just a little bit short on time, so I will try to interpret. Do you mean that we need better static analysis tools? Editors, are there good editors for Lua? I say yes.
Yes.
Are there good debugging tools for Lua? I say I don't know, I use logs. And
yeah.
There is this big problem of debugging that follows C and Lua interleaved. I think there is. I think you mentioned that for some of a debugger that can trace Lua calls and C calls. I think this is would be a very useful.
I think there's one for LuaJIT.
Is it?
from OpenResty authors.
Oh, maybe.
Julian, do you think so?
As far as I know, so for OpenResty, there are some tracing tools that use SystemTap, but no, as far as I know, there is I never used it if it exists. I'm interested.
I think there is a GDB extension for that.
Oh yeah, more for debugging.
Yeah.
I don't know. I use logs.
Yeah, use logs too, so I don't know. And yeah, and that's a debugger. So editors, debuggers, performance tools, not for Logit, are they good ones? I think they're good enough. Also, you can stopwatch your program, right? Yes. So yes, and there's what else do we have? Testing, good enough. What else?
One thing that I found is kind of, I don't know, it's documentation generators. So we have LDoc and that kind of thing. But it has the type annotation thing. And it's, for me, it's just too complicated to use. And usually I don't annotate types if they are string or primitive types, it's fine. But for more complicated types, it's so complicated and so fragile. At that point, I think you just need
in a
looking
typed
for
language. It makes no sense.
Yeah, this is what you are looking for, typed language.
Yeah. So documentation, right? For the continuous integration and so on, we have the usual tools which are work. I think and packages. Yes, we have LuaRocks which can be improved, but going well. And there's testing code coverage. I'm not sure there's a good tool for that. Actually, there's LuaCov, but I have issues with that. Obfuscation also we have good tools. And so I think the only kind of tools which are lacking and much less than when a few years ago is static analysis. LuaCheck does quite a lot of good job finding issues in Lua code. But what I would like to see in a tool like LuaCheck is at least level of ESLint, or is it ESHint? ESLint tool for JavaScript. Where you can define your own set of coding guidelines and write plugins and open architecture. And actually, if I would go to a limb here, and if someone has such a tool, or if people want to code this, contact me privately. I think something can be arranged in the way of sponsoring this work. This is a thing that really needed for community. Not Beautifier, but the checker. The first thing is you have to find what to beautify. Yeah, I think it's an exception.
Lua does have code beautifier, and it's pretty decent.
Which one?
Emilua. Yeah.
IntelliJ plugin.
Yeah, but this is only one editor, and you have to use it. Vim, right? Okay.
As for better debugging tools, the print statement can support colors. That would be nice. No?
But it does support colors if you log into console. It's not a problem.
Yeah, but in Lua.
Not even VIM.
And is there a possibility in Lua language to detect when a variable changes its type in runtime? You know, like in strict Lua, we can detect if we access the global variable that doesn't exist. Can we detect if a variable changes its type accidentally?
How do you define accident?
Heuristically.
Heuristically? I'm scared of that proposal, to be honest. 50. Yeah, I can imagine changes for something to false and back, and for something to nil and back. And actually, I have code that changes from table to string and back for caching. For string to number, there's a lot of changes. And well, I'm not sure if it's if they are useful, really useful cases. Okay, And another question, guys. Please, short answers, please.
Yeah, so speaking of debugging, if there was a perfect debugging tool, which features would it have?
It would be able to log stuff to log files.
Yeah, but you can. You can do it now with printf, but when you stepping through the program,
Why would you want to do this?
because sometimes you don't want to rerun the program and insert another.
You cannot do this on a production server, so it makes no sense.
Okay.
Actually, I have a question for Roberto. Roberto, do you use debugger a lot, or do you use Prince?
No, and I don't know why I'm using debuggers more frequently than I used in the past, but I mostly use Prince. I use debuggers mostly to know where I am, just for where in GDB. Usually when I start using debuggers heavily, I get lost because I start seeing the program in a completely abstraction level, completely different from what I use. So I start finding bugs everywhere until I figure out that, oh, that's what's supposed to be here. And I said, what the hell is this variable? What the hell this pointer points to here, and etc. And then after, for like 15 minutes, okay, this is that's as it should be. But probably I would find the bug much faster. I didn't look at that, so I prefer to use Prince and to keep the level of abstraction, because most bugs are logical bugs. I mean, and so you can understand them in this. And I use Valgrind a lot. I mean, it's a must.
It's a must.
And the feature I really miss in GDB is a run backwards. This is for sure. It crashes and then go back to the last time you called this function before the crash. And so this is.
Yeah. Anton, there's a question behind you for a long time, so.
Yet another question to Roberta. Sorry. There's a load, there's a function Lua load which compiles a string into a module, right?
Into bytecode.
What?
Into a bytecode chunk.
Yeah, I mean, it compiles it as a function, but with default parameters as variable arguments, right? So the point is, I usually patch it to compile with custom parameters. So it makes embedding a little bit nicer. Did you ever consider to put it into vanilla Lua?
Yes, but I don't think it's that useful. I think it's kind of complicated because you have the problem of the name of the parameters, etc. I don't. It would be an extra feature, but
about 5 strings of code, maybe less.
I mean, why varargs are not enough for what you need? I mean,
well, it usually looks like you have to say local ABC equals to 3 points. I think
that's all.
That's one line, not 5.
Yes, it's one line instead of a new feature in a lot of documentation, etc. So that's how we keep Lua small. Someone asked.
I really appreciate that.
Okay, guys, do you have any questions? Not to Roberto.
Question.
Okay, got ya. Go on.
Thank you. How do you think? How many Lua developers are there in the world?
I think it's an open question. Let's start from that side, actually. So I'm on the last. Let's get one.
2.
Okay. No, more than 2. There are much more.
I think 1 million.
Okay. Yaroslav? Quick answers, please.
100,000.
Okay.
I think something between 5 and 10% of all the developers.
And all developers.
I
are
don't
how
know
many?
the number of.
Make a guess. For me estimate.
How many people on the earth?
7 billion.
7 million. Okay, so let it be 7 millions of developers. So 700.
Okay, we
Up to 7,000. Yes.
okay, we will skip Roberto for now. Julian.
I'd say about 1 million as well, but it's like really a wild guess. But
Okay.
yeah, there is a lot of people who touch Lua and who don't even themselves consider developers, or who touch Lua as a very small part of their work. So yeah, I think it's actually a large number.
Okay.
So possibly a number with 6 digits.
So millions.
Not a million.
Millions.
Less than million.
Less than a million. Okay. Okay. Not 6 digits, not 6 zeros, right? Okay.
Everyone is a Lua developer deep inside the heart. So
Yeah.
and it's really funny because when I give talks on Lua to people who don't know Lua, I show them a few slides of Lua syntax, and now I say, now you know Lua.
And then they find syntax errors on your slides.
Yes, that's really easy to learn Lua. Even you can just show it, and oh, I know Lua. that's nice.
Okay, Roberto, your turn.
I don't know how many developers they are, but I know that if each one of them bought a copy of my book, I would be rich. I don't know how much rich, but I would be.
Richer. Okay, and well, my estimate is also millions actually. Well, maybe low millions, and well, Lua is somewhere in the TIOBE index around the 20s, so like a 20th or lower most popular language in the world. I think that sometimes it breaks through higher. I'm not sure what sense does this index mean, but it's in some random number. So Lua is rather popular actually, but not everyone who codes in Lua considers himself well, Lua programmer or programmer indeed. Anton, what's your estimate?
Don't know actually, but okay, about around million. Okay, let it be.
Yeah, 5-10%.
700,000.
Seven.
Almost a million, but it's more
Yeah.
exact. More
Yeah,
precise.
700,001, 700,002. Okay, guys. So one last question.
Where are we going?
Very good. That's I will answer that a little bit later. In a moment.
Roberto, could you tell us about your work on grammars?
On grammars?
Yeah.
Oh no. That's completely out of.
Roberto, can you please say no to the mic?
So say no to the mics. What my work in grammars? I do some work in grammars, mainly with PEGs, or parsing expression grammars. I did an implementation for Lua. I do some basic research with that, but it's all written in the papers. There's nothing else to.
So do you think parsing expression grammars have some properties that will lead to more expressive languages, or is it just an exercise in denotational semantics?
No, I hope. I don't see that the current methods have problems to express languages. I mean, any language that has anything that it's hard to express usually should change the language, not the tool you are using, because people are usually weaker than tools to parse programs. And so anything that is hard to parse for a tool, it's harder to pass for someone. So my point of view is whether it's easier to write the parser, not that it's more expressive, but it's easier to write stuff, or it's more efficient and things like that. So PEGs, for instance, I got because I think it's a very good mix of it's something near regular expressions that you don't need to build something precompiled like in YAC and LAC that you have to precompile and create something, etc. It's just express immediately in your code and it runs immediately. And it does a very good job for things similar to pattern matching, and it goes all the way for grammars. But my point of view is not that, oh, it's more expressive than context-free grammars, and I want that because I can write languages that I cannot write with context-free grammars. So.
Okay, thank you, Roberto. So I think, guys, this is it. So I would like to say thank you, first of all, to you all, and to you in the online translations, and rewatching, hopefully, all those talks and speeches later. Thank you, and thank you, everyone. And thank you for the team, to the team, which worked really hard, and to all the organizers, well, beyond me, which helped us to organize this. And many thanks to all the speakers and to the Roberto. Thank you, Roberto. Also, I almost forgot, sorry, thank you to the sponsors. Brief applause, please.